The wires on the rumor mill were heating up all day on Wednesday with the news that the Cleveland Browns and the Minnesota Vikings were orchestrating a trade that would send Odell Beckham Jr. to Minnesota for a second and a fifth round draft pick in the 2021 draft. It's really hard to know what to believe at this point because as soon as this news was released, there were other reports that came out almost immediately denying it and claiming that this was false. This wasn't real. This was fake news, as our president prefers to call it. I don't believe this trade will actually go down. Not with the way the deal is rumored to take place. This deal really doesn't make sense for either team. For one, why would the Browns accept only 2 picks in next year's draft for supposedly one of the best wide receivers in the NFL? Not only that, it's a second round pick and a fifth round pick. You mean to tell me that you can't get a first rounder for Odell Beckham? When Cleveland traded for OBJ, they had to send a first and a third round pick along with Jabril Peppers to the Giants. And the Giants could not wait to get rid of Odell Beckham. So it was a steep asking price for a team that couldn't wait to get the fucking guy out of their locker room. The Minnesota Vikings just traded Stephon Diggs. So why would they, mere weeks later, orchestrate a trade and give up future draft picks for another receiver? Stephon Diggs fit very well in the Vikings system. Why would they trade him and bring in OBJ, a known distraction? He has been a problem everywhere that he's been in the NFL. It just doesn't make sense from a Viking standpoint. Now, I do believe that the Cleveland Browns need to trade Odell Beckham sooner rather than later. I just think they need to get more in return for him if they can. This is a make or break season for Baker Mayfield. He has another season like he did last year, and he can kiss being a starting quarterback in the NFL goodbye. It'll be gone. That dream will be over. Now he's got Case Keenum standing on the sideline waiting for him to fuck up, waiting for him to have another disastrous start to a season so Keenum could step in and revitalize his career. There were a myriad of reasons last year that Baker Mayfield struggled. Incompetent head coach. Freddie Kitchens was severely underqualified. He has no business being a head coach at the NFL level. Baker Mayfield spent the majority of the offseason last year filming television commercials and signing endorsement deals instead of improving as an NFL quarterback. I think another reason that he struggled was because of Odell Beckham. OBJ is your typical diva wide receiver. If he has 200 plus yards receiving and 2 touchdowns and the team loses, he's a happy camper. If he has 30 receiving yards and only 4 targets and the team wins, he's pissed off. He isn't being utilized correctly, is what he'll say in his post-game press conference. Baker Mayfield was forcing passes to Odell Beckham last season for what I believe to try and appease him, to try and keep him happy. At the time, he was a second-year quarterback. The Browns entered last season with sky-high expectations, probably the highest expectations in the history of the Cleveland Browns franchise. Idiots in the media were crowning them AFC North champions in July. This team had Super Bowl aspirations. Just think about that for a second. The Cleveland fucking Browns, with Freddie fucking Kitchens as their head coach, was some people's pick to make it to the Super Bowl. Let that sink in, how ridiculous that sounds. They were a lot of people's choice to win the AFC North. I'll give the players on the Browns roster a lot of credit. They did a phenomenal job of selling the hype around this team. Too bad for them, it was just a bunch of false bravado. Anyway, back to Baker Mayfield. There was a lot of pressure on him last season. The Browns were on a roll to end the 2018 season. Even though they were beating up on bad teams, they were still winning games, which is an accomplishment for the Cleveland Browns. But there was added pressure on Mayfield because, like I said, he had to work hard to keep Odell Beckham happy. He had to keep him involved. Otherwise, he knew he was going to hear about it later. I've never understood the hype around Odell Beckham. He had one spectacular catch, and I believe it was his rookie season on Sunday Night Football against the Dallas Cowboys. And suddenly people were crowning him the best wide receiver in the NFL. He became a star overnight. But the truth is, Odell Beckham's overrated. First of all, like I mentioned earlier, he has been a problem everywhere that he's been in the NFL. The New York Giants couldn't fucking wait to get him out of town. OBJ is so reviled within the Giants organization that they don't even acknowledge his time with the team anymore. They posted a tweet, I believe it was last week, featuring former Giants receivers. They had Victor Cruz on it, Hakeem Nicks. Guess who wasn't included? Odell Beckham. Everyone wants to point to his multiple seasons over 1,000 yards receiving and thinks that that makes him an elite receiver. If that's the case, he had over 1,000 yards receiving last year with the Browns, and that season was a disaster. I say it all the time on this channel. Stats can be misleading. Now, I'm not saying OBJ's a bum. I'm not saying he's not talented. But I wouldn't consider him one of the top receivers in the NFL. He hasn't had a good year since 2016. He has made it to the end zone 13 times the past 3 years. He struggles with drop passes. He had 7 drop passes last year in Cleveland. Your team has a big game coming up on the schedule. Don't think for a second that you're going to be able to rely on OBJ. This guy is like Amari Cooper. He has a tendency to disappear in big games. 2 games against Baltimore last year, he had a total of 64 receiving yards. In their 2 division games against the Steelers, totaled 89 yards. But KC, he played hurt all throughout last season. That's true. And I give him credit for playing through injury. I really do. He could have easily melded in last year. It probably would have been better for Baker Mayfield if he did. But that wasn't Odell Beckham's fault. That was the fault of the Cleveland Browns medical staff. He could have had surgery for his hernia, missed the first 3-4 weeks of the season, then come back fully healed. But the Browns medical staff opted out of the surgery and had him play through it. And it probably had a big impact on his year. But that doesn't cover up for the fact that he's disappeared in big games throughout his career. Remember all of his performances in the playoffs? Oh, you don't remember? That's because there's only been one. And he was absolutely dreadful. His lone playoff game back in 2016 with the Giants, he was targeted 11 times. He had 4 catches for 28 yards. Odell Beckham has become more known for his distractions and his antics than his play on the field. From 2014 to 2016, he was thought to be the next superstar receiver in the NFL. The past 3 years, he's become more known for wearing expensive watches while he's playing on the field, wearing non-regulation cleats, staying injured. And last season with the Browns wasn't the first time that he dealt with injuries. Multiple ankle injuries kept him sidelined throughout most of the 2017 season. Only played 4 games that year with the Giants. If you're going to be a diva wide receiver, if you're going to demand the ball, demand more touches, you have got to back it up on the field. That's why teams kept giving Terrell Owens a chance. T.O. was a pain in the ass. He divided locker rooms, created problems for the team in the media. But when the lights came on Sunday afternoon, Terrell Owens always delivered. And that just hasn't been the case with Odell Beckham since 2016. He demands the ball. He's a distraction in the locker room. But he disappears when the team needs him most. He was god-awful on third down last year in Cleveland. He is going to have to realize that he is no longer in the class of receivers like a Michael Thomas, a DeAndre Hopkins, or a Julio Jones. He is no longer a top receiver in this league. 2020 Odell Beckham is more the equivalent to guys like Mohamed Sanu, Emmanuel Sanders. The bottom line is, for the sake of Baker Mayfield, the Cleveland Browns need to put an end to the Odell Beckham experiment. It's not working out. And not only is it not working out, it's going to cost the Browns over $14 million each of the next 4 seasons. If the Cleveland Browns truly believe that Baker Mayfield can be their franchise quarterback, the quarterback for the next decade in Cleveland, then the 2020 season needs to be free of distractions. And it's not going to be free of distractions with Odell Beckham in the locker room. Now, will OBJ ever be the receiver he was his first 3 years in the league? I don't think so. I think the last 3 years we've seen the real Odell Beckham. The guy that is fighting kicking nets on the sideline. The guy that is throwing his helmet when he doesn't get his way. The guy that is arguing with his head coach on the sideline when he doesn't feel like he's getting enough touches on offense. I don't know whether or not fame went to his head and he started to slack off, or the injuries are the cause of his decline in production. It really doesn't matter. But for the Cleveland Browns, the sooner they can get him out of that locker room and out of the head of Baker Mayfield, the better it's going to be for their quarterback. All right, that's all for today. Make sure to click that like and subscribe button for me. Hit that notification bell to receive all notifications from the channel. Leave me a comment in the section below. Let me know what you think about the Browns trading Odell Beckham. Whether you agree with me and think they should trade him, or let me know if you think that the Browns should hang on to him. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. I will see you guys next time.